chosen by the alien princess, the human left even the alien queen shocked. From the moment the sun of this alien world dipped below the horizon, the palace had come alive with colors that no human eye had ever seen before. Every corner reflected hues that shifted in harmony with the rhythm of the crowd. Aliens from dozens of star systems filled the space, their shapes and forms as diverse as the galaxies themselves. Some floated, some walked, some crawled, and some moved in ways humans had yet to understand. And yet, amid this ocean of strange life forms, a human stood quietly, taking it all in. His name was Ethan Carter. He had traveled across 1,000 light-years, leaving behind Earth, which, in the eyes of many, was an insignificant blue planet. He had expected hostility or curiosity, but what he felt now was something different. Awe. The palace was more than a building. It was a symbol of centuries of culture, power, and diplomacy. The walls themselves seemed to hum with a strange energy, and the air carried a mix of scents and vibrations that the human brain struggled to process. He adjusted the strap of his simple suit, feeling slightly out of place. Unlike the aliens around him, he wore no glowing ornaments or advanced gadgets. Humans were considered fragile in this part of the galaxy, and most of the other guests had already whispered among themselves. "He won't last a day in the trials," one said in a language that Ethan could barely recognize, yet somehow he understood. He was used to skepticism. On Earth, people had doubted humans for centuries. But Ethan also knew something they didn't. Humans had a quality that no alien technology could replicate: adaptability, ingenuity, persistence. The crowd parted slightly as a tall figure emerged from the central stage, and whispers rippled through the room like a wave. The alien princess, Leora, stepped forward. Her skin shimmered like liquid silver, and her eyes glowed faintly with a color that seemed to shift depending on the angle. She was known throughout the galaxy not only for her beauty, but for her intelligence and unpredictability. Few dared to predict her decisions, and fewer still dared to oppose her. Her voice, when she spoke, carried naturally across the hall without any amplification. It was clear, melodic, and firm, demanding attention. "Welcome, esteemed guests," she said, her gaze sweeping across the assembled beings. "Tonight, we celebrate not just our alliances, but the spirit that connects us all across the stars. Tonight, we choose one to represent this gathering in a task of great importance." The crowd murmured, excitement buzzing like an electric current. Selecting a representative from among all the gathered civilizations was rare. It was an honor that could elevate the chosen one to a status almost legendary, a role that few could imagine achieving. All eyes instinctively searched for candidates, scanning the familiar elite faces: the seasoned diplomats, the battle-hardened generals, the scholars whose knowledge could rival entire libraries of planets. But Ethan stood unnoticed, near the back, blending in with the rest. The princess's gaze unexpectedly fell on him, her lips curved into a faint smile. "Ah, you there," she said, pointing directly at Ethan. The hall fell silent. All eyes turned toward him. "A human here." Ethan swallowed hard and stepped forward, feeling every pair of eyes, every alien heartbeat focusing on him. A shiver ran down his spine, not from fear but from the weight of possibility. "You," she said, voice calm but with an edge of command. "Tell me, what makes you think you can compete in a challenge meant for the finest minds and most capable beings in the galaxy?" Ethan took a deep breath. He had prepared for this, though not in the way most would expect. "I don't think I'm the strongest or the fastest or the most powerful," he said, "but I learn quickly, I observe carefully, I think clearly, and I adapt. That is why I am here." A ripple of laughter ran through some of the aliens, mostly polite amusement. Many had heard humans described as clever, but they were also considered weak and short-lived. Yet, the princess did not laugh. Her glowing eyes studied him, as if she were weighing his words against some invisible scale. "You have courage," she said finally, almost whispering, but the sound carried across the hall. "And that is rare in any species. We will see if it is enough." With a wave of her hand, a series of platforms emerged in the center of the hall, hovering inches above the ground. Complex puzzles, shifting mechanical devices, and floating holographic symbols appeared on each. This was no ordinary contest. It tested logic, creativity, agility, and empathy. Each participant would face a trial, one after another. The crowd watched in anticipation as seasoned aliens stepped forward confidently, showing off their powers and devices. Ethan approached his first trial with careful steps. His hands did not reach for gadgets. Instead, he examined the mechanism in front of him. Holographic symbols floated in the air, forming a complex pattern. Other participants were quick to press buttons, adjust levers, or emit energy pulses. They tried to force the system to comply with their strength or speed. Ethan did none of that. He observed the flow of the symbols, watched how they reacted to minor changes in light and motion, and then reached forward, touching the center symbol lightly. It rotated, clicked, and then the entire pattern aligned perfectly. The hall fell silent for a moment before erupting in astonished murmurs. "Interesting," Leora said, tilting her head. "He does not rely on force or technology, he thinks." The next trials were no less challenging. Ethan faced shifting platforms that required perfect timing, puzzles that seemed to have no solution, and creatures that tested empathy and communication. Each time, he relied on observation, logic, and intuition. He adapted in ways that were alien to the other contestants. Where others used brute force, he used patience. Where others overcomplicated, he simplified. And always he remained calm, never letting the fear of failure distract him. By the final trial of the night, a large sphere hovered above the center of the hall, filled with swirling energy. To claim victory, the contestants had to stabilize the sphere, a task that had defeated even the most advanced alien minds. The sphere reacted violently to force or attempts to control it with technology. Ethan stepped forward, took a deep breath, and focused not on controlling the sphere, but on understanding it. He noticed a pattern in its motion, a rhythm that matched his own heartbeat. Slowly, carefully, he moved in sync with the sphere, letting it respond to him rather than forcing it. Gradually, it settled, glowing softly, perfectly balanced. The hall erupted in stunned silence, then cheers. The princess's expression had changed. Where there had been amusement or curiosity, there was now clear interest. "Remarkable," she said. Her eyes glowed brighter. "No one has ever managed that. Not by strength, not by intellect alone, but by understanding. Humans are underestimated indeed." Ethan did not boast. He bowed slightly, feeling the weight of the attention but also a quiet pride. This was more than a contest. This was proof that humans, despite being seen as fragile or simple, had something no alien could replicate: a mind willing to adapt, a heart willing to understand, and a spirit that would not yield to fear. As the crowd began to settle, whispers spread through the hall. Some were incredulous. "A human won," others said. "How could that be?" But even the skeptics could not deny what they had seen. A human had performed feats that alien elites had failed to achieve, not through power but through ingenuity and understanding. The princess stepped forward once more. "The trials are complete for tonight," she announced. Her voice carried authority but also an unmistakable note of excitement. "Tomorrow, we continue with the final selection. But remember this: sometimes the smallest spark can ignite the brightest flame. Sometimes the underestimated can surprise even the greatest." Ethan felt a strange mix of relief and anticipation. He had passed the first day, but he knew the true challenge was only beginning. Tomorrow, he would face not only the princess's final choice, but the scrutiny of every alien in the hall, including the queen herself. Yet for the first time since leaving Earth, he felt that humanity's true strength might finally be seen. The great hall slowly emptied, and Ethan was escorted to a resting chamber. Outside, the twin moons of the planet reflected on a lake of liquid crystal, creating a scene that seemed almost unreal. He thought of home, of Earth, and of the journey that had brought him here. And in that quiet moment, he realized something profound. Humans were underestimated not because they lacked strength or intelligence, but because they were rare sparks of adaptability and heart in a galaxy that measured life by power and status. Tomorrow, the real test would come. But tonight, one human had already made history. The morning sun of Silistara shimmered through the palace's crystal windows, scattering rainbow colors across the marble floors. The hall was quiet now, but the echoes of last night's trial still lingered in every corner. For Ethan, sleep had been restless. His mind replayed every challenge, every motion of the swirling sphere, every reaction of the princess. He understood now that this contest was more than a simple test. It was a measure of character, adaptability, and understanding. And he also understood that the final trials would not be simple. As he prepared for the day, the palace staff guided him through a corridor filled with artifacts from across the galaxy. Some were tools of war, others symbols of peace, and some even seemed alive. The walls themselves hummed with energy, as though they were aware of the visitors passing through. Ethan walked carefully, absorbing every detail. Humans had a knack for noticing patterns that others overlooked, and he knew that here, in a world of advanced civilizations, attention to small details could make the difference between failure and success. When he reached the Great Hall again, it was already bustling. Aliens of every shape, size, and color were gathered, preparing for the day's challenges. Some whispered to one another, their voices filled with doubt and excitement. Ethan, standing quietly near the edge of the crowd, felt their gazes. Most expected him to fail. Many had already written him off as an anomaly of luck. But there was also curiosity. Last night had proven something undeniable. The human had a mind unlike any other. Princess Leora floated gracefully onto the stage, her eyes glimmering with a mixture of amusement and intrigue. "Welcome again," she said, her voice flowing like water yet sharp as crystal. "Yesterday we saw ingenuity. Today we will see understanding. Today our candidates must demonstrate not only skill but empathy, insight, and creativity. And remember, the trials will adapt themselves to each participant. What you see may not be what others face." Ethan nodded slightly, feeling the weight of her words. He had always known humans were adaptable, but this was a challenge on a scale he had never imagined. The first trial appeared before him, a large floating cube filled with shifting lights and holographic figures. Other contestants immediately reached for their tools or weapons, trying to manipulate the cube with raw power or technology. Ethan, however, stepped back and studied it. He watched how the lights moved, how the shapes interacted. He realized quickly that brute force would not work here. The cube responded only to thoughtful interaction. He moved his hands slowly, letting the lights guide his motions. When he touched one holographic figure, it responded by moving toward another, creating a chain reaction. Slowly, carefully, he manipulated the cube, aligning the figures into a pattern that seemed impossible at first. The crowd watched, silent and amazed, as the human completed the puzzle with nothing but observation, patience, and logic. Princess Leora's eyes glimmered brighter, her smile faint but approving. "Interesting," she whispered to herself, though loud enough for a few nearby observers to hear. "He does not force, he understands." The next challenge was more unusual. A group of alien creatures, small and delicate, hovered in the center of the hall. Each one emitted a different sound, a melody that resonated in the mind. The task was simple in description, but difficult in practice. Participants had to calm the creatures and lead them to the floating platforms without harm. Most aliens used technology or dominance to control the creatures. They waved devices, sent energy pulses, or tried to command them with their mental abilities. The creatures shrieked, darted, and ignored their orders. Ethan stepped forward calmly. He did not try to dominate them. Instead, he mimicked their sounds, adjusting tone and rhythm to match their melodies. Slowly, the creatures responded. Their movements became coordinated, and one by one they followed him to the platforms. The crowd murmured in awe, whispering that no one else had ever achieved this. Some competitors looked frustrated, unable to comprehend how a human, considered fragile and simple, could succeed where they failed. Princess Leora clapped lightly. "Ah, a human, showing patience and empathy," she said. "Perhaps there is more to your species than the galaxy has understood." The trials continued throughout the day. Ethan faced challenges that required memory, creativity, and quick thinking. In one trial, he had to reconstruct an alien device using only fragments, without any instructions. While other competitors tried to force pieces together, he observed the shapes and patterns, recognizing subtle cues. Piece by piece, the device came alive, functioning perfectly under his careful hands. In another trial, he negotiated with holographic representations of alien leaders, finding compromises that satisfied all parties without conflict. His human logic, combined with calm reasoning, allowed him to achieve solutions that left the other participants baffled. By mid-afternoon, news of his performance had spread across the palace. Aliens whispered among themselves, some skeptical, some impressed, but all intrigued. Even those who doubted humans now paused, recognizing that Ethan's methods were different and effective. Unlike other species that relied on power, speed, or advanced technology, he relied on observation, intuition, and adaptability, the very traits that had allowed humanity to survive and thrive on a fragile planet. Finally, the last trial of the day appeared. It was unlike anything he had seen before. A massive, floating labyrinth suspended in midair, shifting constantly. Contestants had to navigate it, retrieve a glowing crystal from the center, and return safely. Many participants immediately tried to race through, relying on agility and speed. Some used advanced tools to map the labyrinth, others used mental powers to manipulate its paths. But Ethan realized quickly that the labyrinth was designed to respond unpredictably to aggression or haste. He took a deep breath and observed. He noticed patterns in the shifting corridors, subtle signals that indicated the safest path. Moving slowly, carefully, he adjusted his steps in harmony with the labyrinth. When a wall shifted unexpectedly, he adapted without hesitation, finding an alternate route. Other participants struggled, some trapped, others panicking. Ethan reached the glowing crystal in the center without difficulty, grasping it gently. On the return path, he continued to follow the labyrinth's rhythm, avoiding obstacles with patience rather than force. When he finally emerged, the hall erupted in astonished applause. Ethan's calm and methodical approach had outperformed speed, strength, and technology. Princess Leora's eyes shone with excitement. "Remarkable," she said, her voice carrying across the hall. "The human does not rush. The human does not force. The human observes, understands, and adapts. This is a quality rarely seen in any species." The other participants looked on, a mix of frustration and admiration on their faces. Many had trained for decades, honing abilities and acquiring advanced tools, yet a human, fragile, underestimated, and new to this world, had succeeded where they had failed. Ethan felt a surge of quiet pride, not for himself, but for his species. He had proven something essential, that humanity's strength was not in raw power or alien technology, but in the mind, the heart, and the ability to adapt to any situation. After the trials, Princess Leora summoned all participants to the central platform. The queen herself, a towering figure of majesty and authority, had arrived. Her presence caused a hush to fall over the hall. She regarded the human with cool, piercing eyes, as if weighing him against millennia of alien achievement. Ethan stood tall, calm, and respectful, aware of the gravity of the moment. "Humans have long been considered weak and unpredictable," the Queen said, her voice deep and resonant. "Yet here stands one who has surpassed expectations. You have demonstrated skill, patience, and understanding beyond what many in this galaxy possess. Tell me, human, do you understand what you have achieved today?" Ethan nodded. "I understand that I have been given an opportunity," he replied. "I do not claim to be the strongest or the most powerful, but I have shown that humans, when observing, thinking, and adapting, can achieve what others may consider impossible. That is the strength of my species." The hall was silent. Even the most skeptical aliens could not deny the truth in his words. Princess Leora's smile widened, and the Queen's eyes softened ever so slightly. "Perhaps," she said slowly, "the galaxy has underestimated humans for too long." As the day ended, Ethan was escorted to his chamber once again. The palace was quiet now, bathed in the soft glow of the twin moons. He thought about the day's events, the trials, the reactions of the crowd, and the subtle, approving nods from the princess. He realized that the real challenge was not completing the trials, but proving the value of humanity in a galaxy that had long dismissed it. And he was ready. Tomorrow would bring the final selection, where the princess would choose who would represent this gathering in a mission of great importance. Ethan knew that he could not rely on luck or chance. He would have to demonstrate humanity's ingenuity, courage, and adaptability once more. But for the first time since leaving Earth, he felt a quiet certainty. He was not just a human among aliens. He was a human who could make a difference, who could change perceptions, and perhaps even earn the respect of a galaxy that had long overlooked his kind. As he lay down to rest, Ethan thought of home, of Earth, and of the journey that had brought him to this moment. He understood now that strength was not always measured in power or size. It was measured in understanding, patience, and the courage to face the unknown with calm and determination. Humanity's spark, he realized, was not in the stars themselves, but in the hearts and minds of those who dared to reach for them. And tomorrow, that spark would shine brighter than ever. The next morning, the Celestara Palace seemed even more magnificent than the day before. Sunlight bounced off the crystalline walls, scattering colors that danced across the polished floors like living rainbows. The great hall was already filled with contestants, spectators, and dignitaries from across the galaxy, all awaiting the final stage of the selection. Word had spread of the humans' performance in the previous trials. Ethan could feel the weight of curious and skeptical eyes upon him, though he walked with calm composure. Princess Leora floated down from the central dais, her silver skin shimmering like liquid metal. Her eyes glimmered with amusement, curiosity, and perhaps a hint of admiration. "Welcome," she said, her voice carrying across the hall with perfect clarity. "Yesterday, we witnessed ingenuity and understanding. Today, you will face the ultimate challenge. Your task is not only to succeed, but to show the qualities that make you worthy of representation: intuition, courage, empathy, and adaptability. This challenge will not be simple, nor will it be the same for everyone." Ethan felt a quiet thrill of anticipation. He had prepared for the unexpected. Humans thrived in uncertainty, adapting to circumstances that no other species could navigate. This was his element. The challenge appeared at the center of the hall, a massive floating structure composed of multiple interlocking platforms, each one suspended by invisible forces. Some platforms were stable, others moved unpredictably, and some seemed to vanish entirely for brief moments before reappearing. Each contestant would need to navigate this shifting labyrinth to reach the final chamber at its center, where a crystalline orb floated, glowing with an inner light. Securing the orb required both intellect and precision, for one wrong move could collapse the platforms and end the attempt. Many aliens stepped forward immediately, using their speed, strength, or technological devices to try and traverse the platforms. Some flew, some jumped, some extended mechanical limbs, and some manipulated energy to stabilize their steps. Each attempt met partial success, but almost all failed to reach the center safely. Ethan stepped forward slowly, observing the labyrinth before taking a single, measured step. He noticed the patterns in the movement of the platforms. They shifted in rhythmic pulses, almost like breathing. Some platforms would appear steady only for a moment, then collapse. Others responded to weight and movement. Instead of forcing his way through, Ethan synchronized his steps to the rhythm of the platforms. When one shifted unexpectedly, he adapted, moving lightly, balancing with precision. Every motion was deliberate, controlled, and observant. The crowd watched in silence, amazed at his calm and methodical approach. The other contestants' frantic attempts made his progress seem almost serene. Princess Leora observed closely, her expression unreadable, though the faintest trace of a smile tugged at the corners of her lips. Halfway through, a new obstacle appeared, a series of translucent walls that refracted light and created illusions of platforms where none existed. Several aliens mistook these illusions for solid ground and stumbled, losing valuable time or even falling entirely. Ethan paused, studying the walls carefully. His mind analyzed the patterns of light and shadow, deducing which surfaces were real and which were illusions. Moving deliberately, he stepped only where the paths were solid. The illusions shifted around him, but he remained unaffected. As he approached the center, the final test appeared. A guardian, a massive alien entity unlike anything he had seen. It was composed of energy and matter intertwined, glowing with a bright, ever-changing light. Its form shifted constantly, and it emitted a low hum that resonated in the bones of anyone nearby. The challenge was clear: retrieve the crystalline orb without provoking the guardian into attacking. Many previous contestants had tried to force their way through, only to be repelled or thrown off the platforms entirely. Ethan observed the guardian. He noticed its movements followed a subtle pattern. When approached aggressively, it responded with force. When approached with hesitation, it remained neutral but unpredictable. Ethan's insight was simple yet powerful. He would not try to fight it or manipulate it. Instead, he moved slowly, deliberately, allowing his steps and body language to communicate calm and non-threat. The guardian paused, watching him, then slowly stepped aside, allowing Ethan to pass. Reaching the crystalline orb, Ethan paused. He did not grab it recklessly. He studied it, noting its weight, the way it hovered, and the slight energy pulses emanating from it. Then, with precise care, he lifted it from its pedestal. The orb's glow brightened, responding to his calm yet confident touch. The crowd erupted in astonished applause. Ethan had completed the labyrinth flawlessly, navigating obstacles, illusions, and a guardian with nothing but observation, logic, and careful adaptation. Princess Leora's eyes gleamed with admiration. She floated forward, her voice carrying a note of wonder. Remarkable. You have not only completed the challenge, human, but you have done so in a way that no other species could. Strength, speed, or technology alone could never have achieved this. You relied on understanding, patience, and intuition. The other contestants looked on, some frustrated, some impressed. Many had trained for decades, mastering physical abilities and advanced technology, yet a human, fragile, underestimated, and unassuming, had outperformed them all. Ethan felt no pride in arrogance. He felt a quiet satisfaction in proving that humanity's greatest strength lay not in force, but in intelligence, empathy, and adaptability. Princess Leora stepped closer to him. "Tell me, human, do you understand why you succeeded where others failed?" she asked, her eyes glowing faintly. Ethan nodded. "Yes," he replied calmly. "Others rely on what they can force or control. I relied on understanding, observing, and adapting." That is what allowed me to succeed. Every species has its strengths, but humans thrive in uncertainty. We adapt, we learn, we survive. That is our strength." Her smile widened slightly and she nodded. "Indeed. You have demonstrated qualities that I have rarely seen, even among the most advanced beings in the galaxy. And yet," she said, her voice softening, "it is not merely the skills you have shown, but the way you have approached the trials, with calm, respect, and insight. That is what makes you extraordinary." Suddenly, a wave of anticipation swept through the hall. The queen herself rose from her seat, her towering figure casting a long shadow. The room fell silent, every alien present holding their breath. "It seems," she said, her voice deep and resonant, "that a human has achieved what many of us believed impossible. I admit, I am surprised. I had not thought a human could perform so well under conditions designed to challenge the galaxy's finest. Tell me, human, what drives you? What is it that allows your species to accomplish such feats?" Ethan met the queen's gaze steadily. "We do not seek glory," he said simply. "We observe, we learn, and we adapt. We face challenges not by forcing them to bend to us, but by understanding them. That is how we survive and thrive, in a universe that is often unpredictable and dangerous." The queen's eyes narrowed slightly, then softened. She had underestimated humans, assuming their physical weakness and short lifespans reflected their capabilities. Yet here stood one who had not only completed impossible tasks, but had done so in a way that demonstrated thoughtfulness, patience, and insight. She was forced to reconsider everything she had assumed. Princess Leora clapped lightly. "Very well," she said. "The trials are complete. One human stands above all other candidates. Your ingenuity, adaptability, and empathy have surpassed even the most advanced species. You have proven that the galaxy has underestimated humanity for far too long." A hush fell over the hall as the other contestants processed the announcement. Some looked shocked, others humbled. A few, grudgingly, nodded in respect. Ethan felt a quiet sense of accomplishment, but he knew this was only the beginning. The trials had shown his skill, but the real challenge lay ahead, representing the princess and proving that humanity's potential extended beyond this hall, beyond this planet. Princess Leora stepped closer to the queen, her glowing eyes fixed on Ethan. "Your Majesty," she said, "I choose this human as my representative. He has shown qualities beyond expectation: courage, adaptability, intelligence, and empathy. I trust him to act with honor and insight in matters that affect our civilizations." The queen's gaze shifted fully to Ethan. Her expression was one of genuine surprise. "A human," she said slowly, "chosen over the galaxy's finest. I must admit I did not expect this." Her eyes softened and a small smile appeared. "Perhaps the galaxy has judged humans too harshly. Perhaps there is more to your species than we understood." Ethan bowed respectfully. "I am honored," he said. "I will do my best to represent you, Princess, and to uphold the trust placed in me. I am aware of the responsibility and I will not fail." The hall erupted in applause once more, this time louder than ever. The other participants approached, some curious, some respectful, some still incredulous. Aliens who had doubted him now nodded, acknowledging that a human had achieved what many believed impossible. As the day drew to a close, Ethan was escorted to his chamber. The palace had grown quiet again, and the twin moons reflected off the crystalline walls, casting a serene glow across the halls. For the first time, Ethan allowed himself to reflect on what had happened. He had faced challenges that no human or alien had encountered before, and he had succeeded. Not because of brute strength, technology, or luck, but because of qualities that made humanity unique: observation, adaptability, and understanding. Princess Leora visited him briefly before nightfall. She looked at him with a mixture of amusement and approval. "You have proven something remarkable," she said. "Not just for yourself, but for your species. You have shown that humans are not weak, nor simple, nor predictable. You are extraordinary in ways that even the galaxy did not anticipate. Ethan smiled slightly. Thank you, Princess. I only acted as I always do. Humans survive because we adapt. That is all. She laughed softly, a sound like bells chiming in harmony. Perhaps the galaxy will learn this lesson from you. She paused, then added, Rest well, human. Tomorrow will bring new responsibilities. Your real journey is just beginning. Ethan nodded. He understood. The trials were over, but the mission, the duty he had been chosen for, was only beginning. He had proven the capability of humanity, leaving even the Queen genuinely surprised. But his work was far from done. As he lay down to rest, he gazed out at the moons over the palace. The night was quiet, yet the possibilities were endless. Humanity had been underestimated for too long, and Ethan had just begun to show the galaxy what his species was truly capable of. The trials had ended, but the journey, his journey, was only beginning. The morning light spilled into the Silistara palace like liquid gold, reflecting across its crystalline walls and casting countless rainbows across the marble floors. The great hall was alive once more, but today was different. Today, Ethan would move from being a contestant to a representative, stepping into responsibilities that few humans could have imagined. The trials had ended, but the true test of perception, diplomacy, and courage had only just begun. Ethan walked calmly through the hall, noticing the way every alien present whispered and glanced at him. Some stared with curiosity, others with skepticism, but almost all carried an unspoken acknowledgement. The human had proven himself. He was no longer just a participant in the trials. He had become a symbol, a representative of humanity's potential. Princess Leora floated toward him, her silver skin glimmering as always. Her eyes shone with a mixture of amusement and pride. Today, she said, you will take your first steps as my representative. Your task is not merely to act, but to demonstrate the qualities that brought you here: intelligence, empathy, adaptability, and courage. You will be observed not only by the court but by other species across the galaxy. Ethan nodded. He understood that every action he took would reflect not just on himself but on humanity. The stakes were high, but he also felt a quiet confidence. Humans had survived for millennia by facing challenges they could not predict, adapting to circumstances no one else expected, and finding solutions others had overlooked. This was his strength. The princess guided him to a chamber filled with alien officials from several star systems. The room was vast, and the officials were seated in tiers that rose like steps toward the ceiling. Each of them had come to observe, to judge, and to see if a human could indeed hold his place among the most advanced beings in the galaxy. The first task was one of diplomacy. A dispute had arisen between two alien factions over the control of a distant mining planet rich in rare minerals. Previous representatives had attempted to mediate using force, technology, or threats, but none had succeeded. Ethan observed the arguments carefully, listening to each faction's concerns, their needs, and their fears. Many of the alien officials assumed the human would struggle to understand such complex politics, but Ethan approached the situation as he always did, with calm reasoning and empathy. He asked simple, clear questions, ensuring he understood every position. He acknowledged the fears of each faction and proposed compromises that addressed their most urgent needs. Unlike many of the aliens who sought to dominate or intimidate, Ethan relied on understanding and logic. Slowly, the factions began to respond, their anger easing as they recognized that the human was not attempting to control or deceive them. By the end of the session, both sides had agreed to a compromise that no alien negotiator had previously imagined. The chamber erupted in quiet astonishment. Princess Leora's eyes glimmered with pride. "See," she said softly, "observation, empathy, and adaptability. He does not rely on power, he relies on understanding. That is a human's greatest strength." The next task tested intelligence and problem-solving. A complex energy grid designed to supply power to several planets had malfunctioned. Previous engineers and technologists from various species had tried to repair it, but their methods failed. Ethan approached the grid, examining its structure carefully. He noted patterns in the energy flow, irregularities in the conduits, and subtle cues that indicated where the malfunction originated. Other engineers had relied on advanced tools, trying to force the system into working. Ethan, however, relied on observation and logic. He traced the flow of energy with his hands, listening to the hum and resonance of the machinery. Slowly, carefully, he repaired the faults, restoring stability to the grid. Lights brightened across the planets connected to the system, and the officials present could only stare in astonishment. Princess Leora's lips curved into a proud smile. Again, intelligence and observation triumph over brute force and complexity, she whispered. The human has done what many of the galaxy's finest could not. As the day progressed, Ethan faced increasingly difficult challenges. He coordinated a simulated rescue mission where an alien ship had been damaged in a volatile nebula. Other participants relied on speed or advanced technology, but Ethan used strategic thinking and careful planning. By analyzing the patterns of the nebula, the ship's weak points, and the capabilities of the crew, he led the rescue successfully without casualties. By the afternoon, whispers had spread throughout the palace. Even the most skeptical aliens now recognized that this human was exceptional. He did not possess the raw power or advanced technology of many species, but he had something far more valuable, a mind that could adapt, think clearly under pressure, and solve problems in ways others could not anticipate. Finally, Princess Leora brought Ethan before the Queen herself. The Queen's presence was overwhelming. Her towering figure radiated authority, and her eyes, sharp and piercing, seemed to look straight into one's mind. The hall fell silent as Ethan approached, holding his head high and standing with calm composure. "Human," the Queen said, her voice echoing through the chamber, "you have completed the trials and demonstrated abilities that surpass expectations. You have solved problems, negotiated disputes, and handled complex challenges that have defeated the galaxy's finest. Tell me, why should I trust a human to represent my princess and interact with our civilizations?" Ethan met her gaze without fear. "Because I act not out of arrogance or dominance, Your Majesty, but out of understanding. I observe, I learn, and I adapt. I consider all perspectives before making a decision, and I strive for solutions that benefit all parties. That is what allows humans to survive, thrive, and accomplish the impossible. I will represent Princess Leora with integrity, intelligence, and empathy. That is my promise." The Queen paused, her expression unreadable. Then slowly she nodded. "Perhaps the galaxy has underestimated humans for too long," she said. Her voice softened slightly, a rare sign of approval. "This human has proven that intellect, empathy, and adaptability can surpass brute strength, technology, and centuries of experience. Very well. You shall act as the representative of the princess, and I will watch with interest to see what humanity can accomplish." Ethan bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I will do my utmost to honor your trust." The hall erupted into applause. Aliens who had doubted him approached cautiously, offering nods of respect and congratulations. Princess Leora floated beside him, her smile radiant. "You have done more than complete the trials," she said. "You have changed perceptions. You have shown the galaxy what humans are capable of. I am proud to call you my representative." Ethan felt a quiet sense of pride, not in himself, but in humanity. For centuries, humans had been dismissed as fragile, short-lived, and simple. Yet here, on a planet that had once seemed impossible to navigate, a single human had achieved what many of the galaxy's greatest minds could not. It was not luck or chance. It was observation, reasoning, empathy, and adaptability. The queen stepped forward once more, her eyes studying Ethan carefully. "I will admit I was surprised," she said. "I did not believe a human could accomplish this, but you have proven me wrong. Perhaps there is more to your species than I ever imagined." Ethan nodded. "We are capable of great things when given the chance," he replied simply. "And we are willing to learn from those around us. That is our strength." As the sun began to set, painting the palace in gold and crimson, Ethan stood with Princess Leora, the queen, and the assembled dignitaries. He realized that the trials were not simply tests of skill, they were opportunities to show the value of humanity itself. And he had done so, leaving even the queen genuinely impressed and curious about what humans could achieve next. The final moments of the day were quiet but significant. Ethan was escorted to a ceremonial balcony overlooking the city, where thousands of aliens gathered below to witness the recognition of the human who had changed perceptions. Princess Leora placed a hand on his shoulder. "The galaxy will remember this day," she said. "And humanity will be remembered not for what it lacks, but for what it contributes. You are the spark that shows us the potential in all species." Ethan looked out over the city, the lights of alien towers shimmering like stars. He thought of Earth, of the small blue planet he had left behind, and of all the humans who had faced challenges unseen by the galaxy. He understood now that strength was not only measured by technology or power, but by intelligence, empathy, and the courage to act thoughtfully in the face of uncertainty. As the night deepened, the stars above Silistara seemed brighter than ever. Ethan felt a quiet certainty that humanity's journey was only beginning. He had proven that humans could achieve the impossible, navigate the unpredictable, and leave a mark on a galaxy that had long underestimated them. Princess Leora's voice broke the quiet. "Rest now, human. Tomorrow your duties begin, but tonight know that you have already changed how the galaxy sees your species. That is a legacy that will endure far longer than any single trial." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He had faced challenges no human had ever faced, had succeeded where others failed, and had earned the respect of beings who had doubted him. But he also knew this was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, filled with challenges, mysteries, and opportunities. And humanity, underestimated for too long, now had a chance to prove its worth on a scale none could have imagined. As he retired for the night, Ethan gazed once more at the stars above. The trials were over, but the journey had just begun. And for the first time, he knew with certainty that humans were not fragile, not insignificant, and not powerless. They were adaptable, insightful, and capable of achieving what the galaxy had never thought possible. And this was only the beginning. Chosen by the alien princess, the human left even the alien queen shocked.